You are now listening to the Hunter's Advantage podcast. We preserve the history and sport of hunting through curious conversation and action-packed hunts, as well as offering you tips and strategy for more successful hunts. The Hunter's Advantage podcast is powered by Out on a Limb Manufacturing. Out on a Limb is a family-owned company based right here in Oklahoma that makes tree stands, saddle platforms, climbing sticks, and so much more.
Christian, I have a quick question.
What's that?
What bites down harder, a hippo or an alligator?
No idea.
It's a trick question. The Ridge Runner 2.0 bites harder than both of them. But all jokes aside, we use these products all across the land on public or private. These help us get into any tree we want and hunt where the deer actually are.
Most men go to the grocery store for their meat, but these products help you go to God's grocery store. I have used the Out on a Limb Ridge Runner 2.0 and the Shakar sticks for the last few years hunting public land bucks, and I've actually shot several bucks out of this setup. If you want to support the podcast and get some Out on a Limb equipment, make sure to go to outonalimbmfg.com and use code HNTA10 for 10% off at checkout. Once again, if you want to support the podcast, go to outonalimbmfg.com and use code HNTA10 at checkout for 10% off. Now let's get back to the podcast. All right, hey everybody, welcome back to the Hunter's Advantage podcast, episode number 169. And today we are joined by a Missouri big buck killer, a trail camologist, and I don't know, I'm going to call you a turkey reaper too, Blake. But
oh,
thanks
be
for
careful.
joining us.
Easy on the turkey reaper thing. Instagram does not like that very well.
Well, we thank you for coming on.
Yeah, no problem.
What? They don't like that? Are you talking about the people on Instagram or Instagram?
Yeah. I think the most hate I get out of every hunting I do a ton of coyote hunting, I do a ton of deer hunting. Turkeys are fun for me. I don't take turkey hunting very serious, and that probably aggravates guys as well. But turkey's like my fun time to just go enjoy the outdoors and hang out with buddies and just have fun. And the most hate I get all year long is in turkey season, and it's unbelievable. I mean, guys are like calling me I'm a loser, and it's just like the worst things you could imagine. It's hilarious, but yeah, they don't like reaping very much. People are very opinionated turkey hunters.
So I'm like a below beginner turkey hunter. What's so bad about reaping? Like, I get the concept of it, but is it considered cheating? Is it like baiting to whitetail?
I guess. I don't know. I can never get any of them to have like an educational conversation with me. It's just more like slanders and tell me that I'm an idiot and that I'm ruining turkey hunting and the population and all of that. But it's just an opinion thing, man. And I'll be honest with you, like I kill turkeys how we can, right? And we hunt them all year. So we hunt them from March all the way through May. And at certain weeks in that time frame, there's just a specific way they want to die. Sometimes it's coming to a call. Sometimes it's reaping them. Sometimes, it can be a strutter decoy. It can be. I mean, there's so much stuff we change over the year that towards the end of the year, if we have birds that aren't going to call and aren't going to decoy and are henned up, we're going to reap them. I don't know. We're going to fill our tags, so we fill our tags. Again, everybody does their own thing, and that's fine. But man,
there
turkey
should be
hunters,
a problem
they
with
love
that.
Yeah,
I mean, as long as you ain't like shooting them off the roost, like
right.
Who gives a dang? You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. I can't. I just can't. I struggle to get behind that movement. I try to always understand. When you're on social media and digital stuff, there's always a million sides to everything, and I always try to kind of understand where people are coming from, and that's one I struggle with, man. Other than it just being an opinion where guys are just not, they just don't like it. And, it's kind of like the crossbow thing. And it's like, there's so many topics out there that hunters are just so passionate about their way of doing it. But I'm a very hesitant guy to push my opinions upon somebody else, because I never want somebody to push. I mean, who's to say somebody from PETA, if you could tell people what to do, who's to say somebody from PETA can't say, hey, hunting's stupid, you can't do it. And then I have to stop doing it, So I just don't get behind it, but we're going to keep doing what we do, and we'll put it out there. And if people like it, they'll like it. If they don't like it, they won't, I guess.
I bet
Absolutely.
I bet 80% of the guys that comment don't have profile pics or real names either. So.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, yeah, that's a lot of it. It's just fake stuff where guys are just trying to be relevant in a conversation, but it is what it is.
What you need to do next year is just shoot one with a crossbow and just really set the tone.
While reaping.
Reap one with
Reap
the
one with
crossbow.
crossbow,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Exactly. 100% what I need to do. Just oh well.
So we were talking about before the podcast, we haven't had you on since 2019. I had you on in like the first 30 something episodes, I think it was.
Yeah.
What have you been up to lately? Like, what does your spring look like? What's your early summer looking like? What have you been up
to? So super busy. I mean, ran through the spring and hit, we went to Nebraska, Kansas, Kentucky, and Missouri. I didn't go to Wisconsin this year. First year I didn't go to Wisconsin. But my buddies up there both had babies, like fresh on the ground babies. So I was like, I'll let you guys do your thing. We'll take a break from it. Did that, and then right after turkey we really fall right into the whole whitetail stuff, and it starts getting pretty complicated with food plots and trying to prep things and doing hinge cuttings and just trying to get everything kind of ready. We try not to, from about July, usually the 1st, we try not to be on the farms very much beyond that, doing big things. I mean, other than feeding, running cameras, things like that. But we really try not to be in there cutting timber or brush hogging, stuff like that. Just try to kind of keep them as low pressure as possible starting in July. So that's kind of the time we're falling into now, which is kind of nice for me because I like kind of taking a break and just focusing on some content stuff and going from there.
Yeah, I love I love when all the cameras are out. All for us in Oklahoma, all the feeders are full. We're getting pictures. It's like, and it's the hottest time of the year, so it's fun to just sit around and be like, all right, let's enjoy a little bit of fruit of this labor that's been going on since May.
Absolutely, man. It's a good time of the year.
Yeah. So I know that you're at least it seems like from the outside looking in, you get a lot of really, really good summer picks. Do you run a lot of minerals in the summer?
Yeah, I run a lot of mineral and a lot of feed. Big Time's been really awesome with coming out with some new stuff. Like they just always drop some new products that are really good. Trigger's awesome product. I think a lot of guys in baiting states are going to be able to take advantage of. It's just kind of a pour and hunt thing. Absolutely crazy aroma. And then it's backed by, of course, nitro and all the good stuff that's in Big Time regularly. But small bag, easy to pack in and dump and hunt. Been kind of utilizing it. We're field testing some new stuff as well that's going to come out. And then they dropped Happy Hour Granule and Happy Hour Liquid, which are two similar mineral kind of compounds. The liquid obviously is a little bit more on attraction and aroma. The granule is more on a higher salt content. So we just kind of play with that. We'll use it, just tag team it with the nitro mineral as well, and try to give them kind of a wide kind of buffet, you could say, of minerals across the board. And we kind of do the same thing with feed. It's kind of try to utilize some different feeds, kind of see what flavors they're liking, what scents they're liking. It's kind of a playground this time of the year.
What's the from your perspective, what's the big benefit or attractant to running minerals? Like, because we run feed all the time. I love to keep my feeders full, and I love getting pictures. And I know minerals is a good bit of the equation for getting really good pictures. But what is the big idea behind mineral? Because I'm not someone who does it a ton. I don't have a ton of access to private property, but it's just not something I've done very much of.
I think why minerals have taken off so much in the industry is because it's kind of a low maintenance thing that can last a long time, right? Like a guy can go out and put one bag of mineral out and it can last for 6 months sometimes, depending on your area. I definitely see a decline in use in mineral in drier climates. Just like this year, I have a lot less activity at my mineral lakes when it's dry. My Kansas leases, I can't just pour mineral in Kansas and get deer to, I guess, habit form or, show up on a consistent basis to that mineral lick. But it's overall health, it's nutrition into them. There's probably some studies that have really tied it in the antler growth. For me, everything I try to do is just create the best life I can create for that animal and give him everything he needs that's in front of my camera as much as possible. I mean, to the extent we're even like this year, we're putting waters and just burying like kiddie pools in front of the cameras to where the thing has literally everything he would need right there in front of that camera just to get him in front of it that much more.
So I really agree with you on the low maintenance thing, because I'm kind of a tightwad when it comes to,
Kind of.
I am a tightwad, especially when it comes like to feeding the deer and stuff. Because so what I've done in the past is before I got like actual feeders, the spin feeders and stuff like that, which I want to touch on here in a second. Don't let me forget. What I would do is I'd go buy that ice cream salt that people use to, I guess, make ice cream, but I would dump that on the ground and like those 2 big old boxes of it. And it's like $6 and it gives you quite a bit. And I went out there just the other day and there's still like a hole in the ground from last year. And it's just crazy how long that stuff sticks around in the soil.
Yeah, absolutely. It can, I mean, gosh, I've got some licks that are bigger than the truck hood, that I just slowly every year just kind of go back. And I literally think I could not dump another thing of mineral in that thing and it would stay like that for who knows how long, you know what I mean? It lasts forever. Yeah. It's a cool thing to get to, if you're watching your money and you just want to put something out there to attract deer. It's a great way to do it. Low maintenance. You're in there one time. I think that's kind of where it's kind of taken off as far as, feeding is just a process. I mean, you gotta stick to it. You gotta do a lot and it's going to cost you some money and that's just part of it. But
yeah, I think you reap what you sow, or yeah, that's the right way of putting it. But I mean, I feel like for most people, it's either like they can't allocate a whole lot of funds for I guess just pouring feed year round and pouring mineral year round. So like what's the best bet for, like, let's say that average blue collar guy to try to do?
Well, depending on your state, obviously a lot of states are going crazy with some regulations on baiting and things like that. But what I always tell guys, like, there's a lot of guys who talk about big ton and its price point and all of that. So I helped design the platinum blend that they have now, which really is high on the prebiotics and probiotics into a whitetail deer. And when you start kind of researching deer and what they do and how they digest, you understand that, like, in the wild, they're passing the majority of things they eat out the back without even absorbing them because of how fast their system works, especially in the summer, because they have such a high fiber diet in the summer, that it even speeds it up even more. So like probiotics and gut health is a very important thing with them. So I'll tell guys, like, man, go buy 1 bag of Big Time and put it on 1 bag of corn or 2 bags of corn or 3, just kind of, you're getting that probiotic and prebiotics in there with it, that you can marry it and already turn that deer into absorbing that much more through his digestion system. But if you're looking at the mineral game of it, I always say there's like a granola bar mineral and then there's like a chocolate mineral. And if you marry the two, that's where the perfect middle is, right? It's a good thing for them, but it's also very palatable and they like it. Salt is like the chocolate, your other zincs and everything else that are just a rich, if you look at some blends, I guess I should say, of mineral that high in zinc and phosphorus and other things like that will have a low salt content. I will usually take like a 30% or lower salt content mineral and then mix it with like an 80 or a 90% mineral or deer cane, or like you're talking about, like a water softener or just salt block, any of that stuff. I kind of marry the two together to where I'm getting him healthy, but I'm also giving him the sweet stuff, like what he wants to come back for, which is salt, which doesn't, you just have to watch salt in the summer because salt's a limiter. So if like in feed cattle and things like that, they'll feed them salt to limit how much food intake they have. So when a whitetail has a bunch of salt intake, he will eat less. Well, if he's growing antlers, you don't want him to eat less, right? You don't want him to not take in that absorption of other things. But the salt's so good, it's almost like candy to humans. You can eat a piece of candy if you're hungry, and it'll suffice you for a little bit. But about an hour later, you're still hungry. So what do? You're going to go back and get another piece of candy, right? If all you eat's candy, you're not getting healthy, right? That's not healthy for you, but it's taking care of what your need is, what your body's wanting. So salt's kind of like that to a whitetail. So I always try to utilize salt as the attractant to bring them to what my healthy mineral is, to where they absorb that as well, or in taking that as well.
Man, I'd have to really disagree with that because I've survived off candy for 26 years. So,
yeah, right?
I mean,
yeah, you got this.
one of the things I like about the minerals too is in a state like Oklahoma where you're not allowed to put grain or any feed out on public land, you
Yeah.
still can run mineral. And
Oh,
so
absolutely.
for a guy wanting to take inventory's sake on, it might not last you the full season, but we've had really good success on public land, just throwing out, half a bag here and half a bag there. And it's like, you're going to get really good inventory of what's around.
Oh, absolutely. I tell you, this is a long story and I'll try to make it short, but I killed a buck named Little Left 2 years ago. That was a buck I knew very well. We got in October. He wasn't showing up very much. So in Missouri, you can feed, but you can't hunt it 10 days. It has to essentially be no feed on the ground for 10 days prior to hunting. So what I always do is I'm very OCD on my farms. I do the same thing every time. And every time I'm on my farms, I drop I'll dump literally like a pile this big of mineral in a mineral lick every time I'm there, just to always have a positive impact on the deer herd when I'm in there, right? So if they hear my side by side, they hear me, there's always something new there for them every time. So I do this every time. Well, it ended up this deer, I hunted him. He wasn't doing rut things. It was October. Come to find out he had been gored in his mouth and had almost ripped both sides. It looked like the Joker, ripped both sides of his mouth all the way open and had a big gore here. But I realized that when I was going in there and moving cameras on scrapes, I'd go to this one mineral lick I have, which is also where I fed. And I would dump mineral, just a little pile. Well, he would daylight it every day I was in there, but every day I wasn't there, he wouldn't daylight it. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to rope and dope him, which is something we learned in Kansas years ago, that you could drive in, dump the feed on the pile, get up in the tree, your buddy drives out. Deer usually show up to it. They'll key up to it because it's right there. It's fresh. So I tried it, put my cameraman in the stand or in the blind, pulled up, and I dumped 2 bags of mineral out, put it in the back in the side by side, drove out, parked, snuck back in. An hour and a half later, he walked in right to the mineral lick and I killed him. So, I mean, you can utilize it and partner it the same way as you would feed, but using the legal method. It's just a matter of, I think, overall, everything came together there. My process, my repetition, but also just the attractant level alone of the mineral, was what he just needed something because he was injured.
That's wild. So you run your mineral and your feeders side by side, I assume?
Yeah. I feed a lot on the ground. I don't feed out of feeders much. If I do introduce a feeder in Missouri, I won't do it until like the middle of winter when they just really don't have a choice. But they're just super leery if I do it any other time. We've tried a couple different times, just hasn't worked. But I'll essentially put a mineral lick 3 feet in front of the camera, and then 5 feet in front of the camera is where I'll put my pile. And that's how it runs all summer. And then just when the fall comes, I just don't feed it and still have my mineral lick, still have my camera. Everything in the site's the same. There's just no food on the ground.
So why don't you feed them during the fall? Is that like an intrusion thing, or?
Well, no, I just can't. I can't legally because I can't hunt it.
Gotcha. I understand. Okay.
Yeah. Now, if it's Kansas, I'm going to leave food on there.
Okay. I get you then.
Yeah.
So I have this hypothesis that kind of more mature bucks don't really like feeder styles, like whether that be a gravity feeder or a spin feeder. And I think they prefer at least more of just a corn pile. Is that something you kind of witnessed being a trail chemologist and stuff like that? Or?
I like that name, but I'm going to change. I think I'm going to change my Instagram handle to trail chemologist. I would say the new bucks, but again, I'm very big on culture and building the culture in your deer herd. So if you raised him on a feeder, if his mom ate out of a feeder and he stood under and watched it, I think he's going to just not even blink an eye at one. But I think if you walk into a new area, 9 times out of 10, he's going to walk up to one on the ground and eat till he's full, and he's not going to come around a feeder at all. I mean, that's what I was talking about, like introducing a feeder. I will not introduce a feeder to a new farm till absolute midwinter when he has no choice.
Yeah. Well, kind of like you were saying, every time you drive your side by side in, you try to introduce something good for the deer herd. And so they're kind of used to that, in a positive way. Well, in Oklahoma, you can feed during the season. And so I just have a feeling, and especially on the smaller parcels of land, when all your neighbors run feeders as well, that they kind of associate a feeder with danger, so every time that goes off, and Billy got shot, last week, and they're just kind of weary of that. And so I just didn't know if I was just overthinking it or if that's something you've experienced as well.
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can tell you, I don't feed. Gosh, I think I have one feeder total in all my Missouri farms and my Kansas farms together. Like I have one feeder in Kansas, and that's it. I mean, I don't. For me, it's just ease and time, right? Like I don't have to get on top of my side by side and dump it in this feeder bag by bag by bag. I can pull up, dump it really fast, throw it back in. I'm out of there. You lose some. I mean, you lose more feed. I guess you waste more feed with coons and things like that. But to me, it's a very, like you said, easy transition for them. They're not weary or any of that stuff at all. So just on the ground.
Yeah, the only reason that I would prefer not to use one, but I live like 5.5 hours from 2 of my leases in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And if I was to not use one, I would have no way to like manage how much food I have. Like, so I feel like for
Right.
people with like long distance leases, it kind of feels like a necessary evil in some sort of a
Yep.
way. Like when you're a property that doesn't have big ag or really good, maybe natural forage on the ground, it's like, it's one of those things. If you're not doing it, the guy next to you is. And it's tough.
Absolutely. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. But what I would do if I was you is I would do that feeder and then I would put a pile out too. And I'd just see. Like, you know what I mean? Just run a little
just
like
test the waters.
like, hey, see if you pick up a different deer on a pile as opposed to on where your feeder is. I mean, there's always ways to play that game. You know what I mean? To just see it and test it out. Like, man, I have to tell you right now, like I come into everything I do hunting wise and all that stuff every day of like, I'm just learning from them. They're writing the script. I don't know. I can just take little points of wins that I've had through the years and put them together and, hey, this worked on this deer, I'll try it. Hey, this worked on this deer, I'll try it. It's crazy, but it will work no matter. I mean, like I was just talking about that buck, like I took something I learned in Kansas 5 years ago and tried it on him in Missouri and it worked. Like I would have never told you it was going to 100%, but it was like, whatever. Cool. I've seen it work before,
I hear you. I have this buck that when I first found out he existed, he was 3.5 years old and he's about, I don't know, like probably mid 120s, but he's for sure a young deer, like probably 3.5. Mm-hmm. And I got him on the hoof and I was like, no, I'm not going to shoot him. We'll just see what he turns into next year. Plus there's a bigger one on the property that I was sort of after as well. And then last year I seen him on the hoof again and I was going to shoot him, but the stars just didn't align. And then this year there should be no reason he's not still alive. But I just didn't know because as a 3-year-old, it was just a corn pile. As a 4-year-old, I wanted to keep the same as a 3-year-old because I thought I had him dialed down like to the T, like where he was when he showed up because he doesn't summer there at all. Yeah. And but then because I had an encounter with him and just totally blew it. And then I was like, it's either that deer or no deer. And so at that point, I was like, screw that. I'm not going to intrude anymore in here. And so I just, it might have been a dumb thing to do, but I introduced a new feeder, which there's another feeder on that property that I was using, but it wasn't in this one area. So I threw it up there right after I had the encounter with them. And I was like, if he's gone, he's gone. I'm just going to stay back. I want to have food in here at all times. If he wants to come back, great. If not, it is what it is. And so I just didn't know because I know the older they get, the smarter they get, obviously. But yeah, it's just one of those things that I'm kind of weary of.
Yeah, I think you can overthink them a lot. I think people, not to take anything away from deer, but I think people almost think that they can like sense that people are hunting them to the extent that they're like, oh, this is a feeder, there's a guy here, yada yada yada, whatever. I can tell you what changed for me as far as a lot of success on target bucks and killing target bucks when I started hunting them was really trying to learn their personalities and what their traits were, right? Like, are they a busy homebody? Are they a roamer? Are they just super skittish? How much pressure they tolerate, things like that. So I essentially took scent control, and people are going to hate me for this. I essentially took scent control out of the game. I didn't do it at all. I didn't shower before I hunted all the time. I mean, if it was a normal day, but you know what I'm saying? I didn't wash my clothes scent free. I didn't use ozonics. Nothing. And I just started saying, okay, I'm gonna tell them I'm here. I'm gonna show them I'm in this spot. I'm gonna stay the same. I'm gonna keep my same routine. I'm not gonna be a threat. And then I'm just gonna surprise them, right? Like I just surprise them, kill them. That's the time, whatever. And it worked. And it started becoming more successful with it, because what I found is I was giving myself like a false sense of confidence in the scent control, thinking I could get away with like sneaking into his bedroom. And if I spray my camera down and put it in here, he won't notice it. Right. I ended up hurting me in the end, to where I was like shooting myself in the foot with it, where I wouldn't have made that move if somebody would have said he's going to 100% notice it. You know what I'm saying? Like it gave me that kind of false confidence. So I changed all that stuff to where I kind of stay on the edge. I just stay predictable. And then say we bounce in, 30, 40 yards, hang a set, and we hunt that deer and kill him. That strategy, I guess I should say, pretty much has worked out throughout Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, South Dakota. I mean, you have so much different hunting pressure in all of those. But I think if you stay predictable, that's a big thing, and just keep your routine down every time. Let him kind of pattern you. Mm-hmm. I think you'll find more success in it than going back and trying to be like, okay, I got to try to change this on him now. I got to try to change this on him now. You know what I'm saying? Right. Like if you've got a place to where you can watch him and you can get pictures of him, and your intrusion isn't too much and he tolerates it, then that's a deer I start kind of putting some more effort into, right? And I start kind of watching him. But like we talked about before with the personality thing, like a busy homebody deer, if his home is where nobody hunts, that deer is going to get big automatically. Like that's just naturally what he's going to do, right? If he's content, if he's a deer that has a personality that is content to stay in a 2 acre square, right? Probably not, but he could. Mm-hmm. If he's content with that, nobody can hunt that 2 acres. 9 times out of 10, he's going to live extra years, right? So he's going to get bigger. The other personality I've seen on big deer a lot is like the roamer, the deer that just absolutely is unpatternable, right? Like he'll be 2 miles this way, then he's 2 miles this way, then he's 2 miles this way. Those personalities and those deer seem to live longer as well. So I'm always watching how a deer reacts, how he works things. Like we talked about running cameras all year. Like I'm going to hunt a deer in Missouri that is a new farm to me. I have no history with this deer at all, other than I just picked him up on a pile. And I'm literally since May have been watching this deer and how he reacts to everything I do. So like I went in, just for instance, yesterday, I'm playing with a new camera that Moultrie's dropping, and I had it out, and I wanted to put an edge in there because I just wanted a different angle. So I went in and fed it, put the edge up, walked down the main trail. I mean, the trail they have to go through to get in there, walked down it, moved the other camera over to another tree just to get another angle of it, and walked out. Didn't spray anything. I was wearing tennis shoes, like nothing crazy. Walked out. The deer showed up at 8 o'clock. I was at 4 p.m. He showed up at 8 o'clock on the pile. So like it tells me a little bit about him now. And I'm like, okay, he's pretty passive to pressure. He doesn't care. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't really have a care in the world. Like those are things that I started focusing on when I became more successful with actually targeting a deer a year and hunting them. Those are things I really started watching for. So like when you go back and you watch your deer, you look at deer you're hunting specifically, like try to do little tests for him, I guess I should say. Like, you know what I mean? Like pay attention. Is he comfortable there? Is he not comfortable there? Does he act like he smelled you walking in? You know, those are things that'll let you know how much pressure he's willing to tolerate and how much effort you need to do in concealing what you're doing and where you are.
It's so interesting because I totally agree with you that every deer has a different personality.
100%.
And there's like three, when we were talking to Bronson Strickland during our Deer Science Month, he was talking about the three distinct personality types. Like you said, the roamer, the homebody. I think there's probably a hybrid in between the two.
Yeah.
And that's probably a bell curve. But that stuff is so interesting to me because it seems like there's certain mature bucks that I've killed 7.5-year-old bucks right over a feeder. They could care less. And there's certain bucks that you will never catch them on the feeder. And there's certain bucks you can get on trail cam all day long. And there's certain bucks that you will never catch them on trail cam but one time. And it's in the back of a picture with another buck. And he's like, no. Right. And that's kind of the fun and the challenge of it, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I think guys, I don't like everybody just thinks, oh, he just knows, or, oh, he's just dismissed. It's like, he's not. Like, just get to know him. You know what I mean? Like, it sounds dumb, but like, get to understand what his ticks are, understand what he tolerates, what he doesn't. And that'll help you understand what you can do to get in front of him. Because every one of them, like you said, every one of them's different. There's similarities always, but there's just, every deer has a weakness. You know, it's always like the guys who are like, oh, I got a nocturnal deer. He never walks in the daylight. Like, no, he does. I promise you. You're just not where he does it. You're on the neighboring property, or you know what I mean? Like that should tell you, if you're only getting night pictures of a deer, you're probably time to move, right? Like try to move a camera, try to move a pile, try to think about it, move directions of where he's coming from, whatever. Like, there's times to sit and there's times to go. And if he's not daylighting you at all, or not even close to daylighting you, then you're not in the right spot. Like, you got to do something to get to where he is, you know?
Yeah. It's interesting that I agree with you. There's some portion that you can like let a deer pattern you. And I think there's this other side of it where people are trying to do too many little things to get it 100% right, where they legitimately let the deer pattern them to the extent of like, I don't live here anymore because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Again, like I said, it's always just kind of I don't know, each case scenario, you know, but that's what we're doing now. Like, a lot of guys in the summer are just trying to get pictures, right? I just want to get pictures. I'm like, no, man, I'll run photos for a while, and then I'll run it on video and watch how he comes in, how he works it. How is he calm? Is he not calm? Is he, you know, all that stuff. I'll even I'll move my pile and dump some right underneath the camera. I mean, literally right underneath the tree, to see if he'll walk right up and not smell the camera, or not, you know what I mean? Like, I give him little tests just to see what he tolerates and what he won't tolerate. And I can tell you, like, the deer I have now is a big deer, and he doesn't care, like, at all. So that's a good thing. Like, that lets me know I can spend more time on him, put more effort into him, and try to really kind of work him out over the next couple months, see what he does, and hopefully sticks around, hopefully get in front of it.
So what about for all those people that say, like, that are worried about like intrusion? Because that's something I feels like super stressed nowadays. Just like, oh, you know, the human intrusion aspect of it. And it seems like what you're doing is almost the complete opposite.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah. Again, now there's different ways of what I do, right? Like, my intrusion's always the same. And I mean, like, when I say always the same, I mean, like, you could put a dime down, and my side-by-side probably would stop on that dime every time. Like, I mean, I'm like OCD, as you can imagine, with this stuff. But yeah, for me, it's a matter of, like, I think when I get a farm, it's just a matter of being like super patternable to him. There's no reason I need to intrude in his bedding area right now. Right? Like, I let my food, let my mineral work for me. So I'm going to put it at a spot I can get to easily, that is on the edge, that's close enough. Even if it's nighttime pictures right now, that's okay. Like, if I have him 3 times a night and his first picture's within an hour of daylight, he's there. Yeah, I mean, like, he's right there. It's not like it's 4 a.m, I get one picture of him and that's all I get. Like, if it's stuff like that, is stuff I'm looking for right now. I think you can intrude a lot. I will tell you that I don't hang any stands in the summer at all. I don't hang a single stand in the summer. There's no reason to. I don't have a pattern yet. Like, if you really think about it, I have deer, but I don't have a pattern. Like, I could go hang some rut stands for who knows what deer if I wanted to, just all based off of funnels and Google Maps. You know what I mean? But if I'm hunting a specific deer, I don't have a pattern yet. So I might as well not do anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just no reason to go in there and mess with him right now. Now, once I find a pattern, I'll go in and hunt it. And I usually don't hang and hunt it, but I'll usually hang it and then bounce out of it and get back into it the next, whenever the next cold front is. Like that's what essentially I'm rolling into September. So what I do in September, as soon as crops come out, is I get on the side by side and I drive the edges. Usually the day, I try to do it within 2 days of them leaving the field. I'll drive. You can do it pickup, do it side by side, whatever. I wouldn't walk it, but I drive the edges of the field and I look for scrapes. We start seeing scrapes usually late September here, usually around the 20th, 25th, something like that. Our bigger ones start. I'll put mobiles on those scrapes and I'll just let them tell me where the deer are. And like I said, even if he doesn't daylight it, if he's within an hour of it, I'll take that in the factor. And then I just watch my weather. And if I've got a big cold front coming, I'll hang a north wind set on it. We'll slide in and hunt that north wind set. And the deer I killed last year, I shot a 165-inch deer in Missouri, October 16th. And I literally hung that camera and that stand the day before, put the camera on the scrape. He showed up at 9:30 that night. Next day was a 35-degree cold front. It was huge. And I went in, and at 4:30, he was out in the field chasing does, October 16th.
Really?
Yeah, 5.5-year-old 165-inch deer. I never saw the deer before in my life. That was the first picture I had of that deer.
So was I was screaming through your Instagram earlier. Was that the deer you called the backyard 10?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that thing's a tank.
Yeah, he's a beast. And I honestly, no bullcrap, I thought that deer was 155 inches. I did not realize his body was as big as it was at all.
Some ground growage?
Yeah, it was the literal ground. I was like, it was the biggest bodied deer. I didn't weigh him, but biggest bodied deer I'd ever killed in Missouri. It was unbelievable. Yeah. But I didn't take it into effect. You know what I mean? Like you can't factor that off a trail camera. You're just like, he's big, but.
I like what you said about not putting stuff out in the summer, because I feel like so often as hunters, and especially bow hunters, people that have to be very calculated about where we put stuff. 5 yards is the difference between killing one and just watching one walk by.
Oh yeah.
I think that's really smart, because a lot of times what we do, and especially on public land, is we get in there and we set up, if we've hung stands in the past, not in the last couple of years, but in the past, where we're like, oh, a deer should be here, or we want one to be here. It looks like a good spot where one would be. And it's like, yeah, but that's what we like. That we're not considering at all what the deer is actually going to do.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You got to find a pattern before you put effort into it, in my opinion. I think you just end up doing more damage, because what if he's really, like you said, 25 yards downwind, walking that trail that's a faint trail that isn't the main trail, or you know what I mean? Like, you can hang rut, like, don't get me wrong, you can hang rut stands any time of the year you want. I mean, everybody knows where the funnel is, right? But if you're going to hunt a specific deer, there's no reason to hang a set in July or June, you know what I mean? Any of that stuff. Or July, August. I don't see any reason to do it. If guys want to do it, I guess they can, but I don't do it.
Yeah. Do you, when you drive into your properties, do you like to make your presence known, like with, let's say, your voice, or are you quiet when you walk in? Because I have a situation that I've seen play out sometimes with some buddies where they drive in on an extremely loud side by side. I don't know what is up with the mufflers on side by sides these days, but they're like annoyingly loud. Right. And then we're in the side by side. It's like hurting my ears. But if we talk like we're talking right now, they're like, shh. I'm like, dude, we're in a side by side. They're not going to be like, that's a side by side and that's a voice. Now I'm scared. What do you do when you go in?
Yeah, I drive a side by side. I've got a Defender. I drive it in. I don't know. I guess I can't say we talk a lot. Usually if I have a camera guy with me, he stays in and I get out. I will tell you that I've noticed many, many times when I'm the only guy who feeds the farm and another guy gets out of the side by side and stands by the pile, when the deer come in, they're automatically on alert to his scent immediately. Like, they can literally tell the difference in it, like, hands down. They're just different for a little bit when they come in. They just don't, bulge right in or barge right in like usual. So yeah, when I say I'm OCD, like, I'm pretty OCD. Like, if you go with me to feed or run cameras, like, you'll just sit in the side by side and watch me do it. But I also like drive right up to it. Like, it's not even like, there's no walking. I don't walk anywhere. Almost. I don't walk anywhere. Yeah. If I like 50 yards max.
Well, the deer's sense of smell is so interesting, because we were noodling catfish last weekend and we were probably 40 yards downwind of the girls while they were spraying sunscreen on themselves. And I smelt it from like 40 yards away. My buddy was like, do you smell that sunscreen? I turned and it hit me in the nose. And I'm like, if I can smell that from 40 yards away and a deer can smell 100 times better than me, what the frick do I actually smell like when
Yeah,
I go out
exactly.
there? It's
Yeah.
nuts.
Oh yeah. No, again, and people are gonna hate me for this, but I don't do scent control, man. I don't do it. I just I don't think you can beat them, and I
Well,
think it gives you false confidence to beat them.
we'll clip this, put it on TikTok, and then have you canceled.
Yeah, the next scent control company that calls me and wants me to have sponsors, I'm gonna be like, sorry, I can't. No, I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying for me, I haven't seen the benefits of it, and I've actually seen counterproductiveness where guys think they're bulletproof and they do stuff that they wouldn't have done if they didn't have that.
Well, our thinking is like when we go hunt public and stuff, some of it's quite a bit of a walk, and I'm sure it's the same way in Missouri, but like it's hot, especially early season and stuff, and it's just like, well, even if I take every scent control measure I can besides wear a plastic bag around my body,
Right.
I'm going to sweat, and especially by the time I hang the set and get all the camera gear strapped up and all that stuff, like I'm drenched. And like if I have an extra shirt, sometimes I might throw on an extra shirt, to be honest, just to be dry. But
Right.
there's no way to contain all that.
No, and I'm not saying don't use it. You guys want to use it all you want to, but don't go into with the mentality that you're bulletproof, because you're going to make some mistakes. You know what I mean? Like, I think if a hunter, every hunter was like, man, they're going to smell where I walked here, and if they get downwind of me, they're going to smell me. I think guys would hunt differently, or they wouldn't take a chance when it wasn't right, I guess I should say. Like, you gotta, you set up everything to be like, for me, I try to put the most odds in my side, and the rest is luck. Like, every deer, I don't care who you are, you can think you're the best deer hunter in the world. There's luck involved in killing every animal. And all I can do is take my educated guesses and my experiences and what I've done and apply it to where I'm at. And if it's right and the stars align and I get lucky, I get lucky. But I just think guys, I think guys do things that they wouldn't have done. You know what I mean?
That's a good point. I think, yeah, that's a really good point. I've probably done that myself.
Oh, I have. I 1000% have. When I should have just, it's like you got a southwest wind, but you know that the west in it will kill you, and tomorrow's a straight south wind. But you're not going to wait for tomorrow. You're like, oh, I'll just spray down, take a shower, and put an ozonics in the tree. I think I'll get away with it. Mm-hmm. And you blow the deer when you could have just waited another day and killed him. You only got it. My favorite saying ever in deer hunting is you only have to get it right once. He's got to get it right every time. You only have to get it right once. Don't rush it. Like, it'll fall. Like, put all the odds, every piece of odds you can put in your favor. You only have to get it right once until the rut.
So we know that a deer's nose it's likely its biggest weapon. How do you reconcile giving a big buck the wind that he needs to feel comfortable versus the wind that you need to access your stands in the right way? Do you consider that when you're hunting?
Yeah, I mean, entry and exit's most important to a stand. I can have a great tree, but if I can't get to it and out of it without him crossing a trail, I won't hunt it. Like, I will not do it. Now, giving him the wind, like on a crosswind, things like that, I've done it. I've been pretty successful with it. But it's the right situation. Like, I won't rattle. Like, a lot of guys love to rattle. I love to rattle, but I won't do it if I cannot absolutely 100% know the deer cannot get to my wind. So we're talking like a bluff, a creek, a river, whatever I can put down there. If I don't, even a field, like a lot of times I'll use a big, like if I've got a giant field behind me, then I'll rattle and my wind's going into that field. I'll do it. But man, if there's any chance that deer can get around me within 400 or 500 yards and smell me, I won't rattle. I just don't do it that day. It'd be nice, but because that's where he's going. Any mature deer is going to your downwind. It's just what he's going to do.
Well, it's interesting, and I think it might roll into the personality thing too, because I've killed 2 7.5-year-old bucks out of the same tree stand. One of them was on a north wind where this deer couldn't have smelled me. He would have had to circle 300 yards downwind to get me, and had no he had no consideration for the wind when he came in, and I shot him at 20 yards. I've had
Well,
another
impressive.
mature buck, 7.5-year-old, that I killed him on an east wind, which is kind of a marginal wind for that spot. And he J-hooked and used it and came right into it. And they
Really?
just, each one of them, I feel like they're a little bit different in the way that they do these things.
Oh yeah, I would say so. I would say that 9 times out of 10 that I've had, at least in Missouri, with big deer, I've had 3-year-olds run to the tree like straight in. Run. I've had them run by me, like just completely miss the sound and just run completely past you. But yeah, every big deer I've ever had has always got to about, I'd say 80, 100 yards, and then he's just slowly started going that direction. And I think that's, in my brain, it's probably just where he got to where he thought he should see something or hear something else, and he doesn't. So then he starts getting, it's kind of like a coyote, do the same, like a coyote beeline right to you. But then usually about 60, 70 yards, if they have any kind of inkling at all, they start kind of swinging you. To try to get the wind on the call. And yeah, I would say you're absolutely right though, right? There's some deer that are idiots. It's like people.
Mostly idiots.
Mostly idiots. No, I would agree. I agree with you on that.
I've been using the new Exodus Rival cell camera for the last couple months, and I have found a beautiful mainframe 8-point with tons of stickers to go after this fall.
Ooh.
One thing I do appreciate about Exodus trail cameras is all of the cameras share the same data plan, so you only pay for what you need. A lot of cell cam companies charge you for HD pictures. I've seen prices of $5 for 50 HD pics. Exodus is going to give you unlimited HD pictures right to your phone, which is awesome when you're sitting there in the middle of the summer and it's 100 degrees and you just want to binge a bunch of trail cam photos.
If you're looking for a solid cell camera with great performance and a 5-year no BS warranty, go check them out. So as we all know, hunting gear is something people can make way too complicated. Arrows can be the exact same way. Instead of going down all those rabbit holes trying to sift through the endless information that's online and you're not really sure if it's right or wrong, Exodus makes it simple to get the right arrow for your exact setup.
So go online to the Exodus Arrow Builder. It takes less than a minute. You're going to enter your draw weight, your draw length, and how heavy of a point you're shooting. And it's going to be that simple. Let the guys at Exodus take care of the rest.
So if you're interested in Exodus Rival cell cameras or a new set of their MMT arrows, just go to exodusoutdoorgear.com and use code HA15 for 15% off anything on their website.
Once again, that is exodusoutdoorgear.com. Use code HA15 at checkout for 15% off. Now let's get back to the podcast. So what are you doing right now with your trail cams? Apart from putting them on feed and mineral, is that your main strategy for the summer moving into the fall, or you have them on crossings, you have them on water sources? Do you distribute them in other places, or are you mainly using that for your inventory, your minerals and stuff?
I'd start mainly on feed and minerals for the most part. Water, some, just depending on the year. Like this year's a great water year. So we moved some to that, but we also started just doing the little kiddie pools and things like that, little troughs. I will move. So typically in a normal year, if I'm getting the deer I want to get as pictures of on feed and mineral, I'll move them straight from there to scrapes. Then they ride scrapes until probably November 5th or 6th, something like that. And then I'll pull a lot of them off scrapes. And that's when we start moving them to funnels and things like that to try to see and then they go, especially from then on, then they'll go to food sources, mainly either back to food piles or food plots or whatever. But yeah, summertime, I don't have them in the timber much at all. I'm not in the timber that much at all in the summer. Like I said, I once July rolls around, I really don't touch my timber, at all until we kill a deer. That's kind of the plan, at least. That's the hope of it.
So do you use, like, if you're hunting multiple states, like you listed out Nebraska, Kansas, South Dakota, Missouri, do you use that real-time information from cell cams to make decision on which states to jump around to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot. So Kansas is a big one because Kansas, you can feed out there. So we've got box blinds on trailers. Mm-hmm. So we'll literally pop a pile. We have piles that run all year out there, but say we got a deer that's hitting them. Like I've got a big deer in Kansas right now that's daylighted 8 days in a row on a pile. So if we were in September, obviously about day 3 of him daylighting, I would be in Kansas with the trailer pulled into it. But yeah, it's a lot easier out there. There's no guessing game. I think the coolest thing about it is you can always get eyes on him. It's so wide open. You know, I'm in northwestern Kansas, so wide open that, man, even if he's not hitting your pile, you can almost go out any night with a spotting scope and get eyes on him. That's so nice because, man, I've hunted deer in Missouri that I've never even laid eyes on.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like common, right? Like, oh my God, I've never even seen this deer in real life. And the time I do see him, we usually kill him. You know, it's like, it's just not that, it just doesn't happen that often there. So that's a whole different game out there. But yeah, I'll watch the real time stuff. And then especially when you get in the rut, you can do the same thing, right? Like, man, I pop 3 different bucks out in Kansas right now in the rut. Like, it's kind of kicking up out there. I've got a couple days I may run out there kind of thing.
So let's say you have a target buck in the summer, you have him on a pattern, and for some odd reason, whether he just disappears or let's just say he just becomes non-existent until the rut. Do you usually start trying to back off of your target buck during the rut, or do you still try to find them? Do you move around and try to find them, or do you just say, you know, all patterns out the door, I'm just going to sit with what I know maybe historically, or you know, just give me the best odds?
Yeah, I hate the rut. I'll say that. I'll be one of the first guys to say I hate the rut. The rut, I'll tell you, the best strategy for hunting the rut is shut your mind off and go sit in a stand, because it's luck and time. Like that. Deer do things that make no sense in the rut. Absolutely no sense. They can. It's absolutely just oddball stuff, and that's why I hate it so much. But some guys love it because that's the time they get to hunt and they get to go out and do it. For me, being a guy who's a very target specific, I love figuring out a deer, learning them inside and out, and killing him at some point. For me, that's a struggle because I don't even know where he is. Like, somebody will call and say he was 3.5 miles that way. You know what I mean? It's like, what? What? So yeah, I'll say, for instance, in Kansas, I had a buck. I hunted early. I ran all the piles. Didn't have anything at the time I thought was really big enough I wanted to go after or old enough. So I kind of set it out. I did have a buck show up in October on a pile. I hunted him a couple days, saw him once, never killed him. Then he sheared off his whole left side. So I left him, and then I just started just typical rut hunting. I just started sitting funnels with the right wind, you know, and just riding it out and rode it out. Ended up not killing anything. Saw a bunch of really nice deer, didn't kill anything. And then I went back and about Thanksgiving out there's a really good time to kill a big deer if he doesn't break up, because they're coming off the rut and they're just slaves to their stomach. So they'll go right back on the piles. And I mean, they'll just daylight them by an hour and a half. And actually the funny thing was I killed an 8-pointer out there. That deer, I had him all summer and all like early season, all September, all October. And I didn't hunt him because I thought he was 140 inches, and I was an idiot. And anyway, I saw him on the hoof 2 days before, and I was like, oh my gosh, that deer is way bigger than 140 inches. So I went in and killed him around Thanksgiving, but he was 162 inch 8-pointer, biggest 8-pointer I've ever killed in my life. And I literally thought he was 140 inch 8-pointer. Like, I don't know. I just, I duffed it. I would have killed him in September and the whole thing would have been way easier. But yeah, I totally
wild. 160 inch 8. Dear God, dude.
Yeah, he's a stud. And I just didn't take that same kind of thing with that other deer. Like, I just didn't. The Kansas deer built so much different than our deer in Missouri are. Like, they're just thoroughbreds, man. And I just didn't take his body into effect. I felt like the biggest doofus in the world, though. I can tell you that. I was like,
well, you got it done regardless.
Yeah, I was like, you don't deserve this deer. You're an idiot.
I shot a dink last year on Kansas public land that I was hoping was going to grow with a big body, but it didn't.
It didn't?
No.
How far out in Kansas do you go? You don't have to tell me specifics. I know you public land guys are like hardcore.
Yeah, we were hunting southeast Kansas.
Okay.
Yep. It's good stuff.
That's good area.
Yeah, no, good area if you like hunting around people.
Yeah.
Well, the rut was awful. The rut was, I'll I don't think I'll ever go back to Kansas like in November, but like the early season and like we went, I don't know if it's like early or mid December, and it was still seeing just as many deer, and it was pressure free, and it was lovely.
Yeah. Kansas, the trick to Kansas is like October 28th through November 1st. It's like that's like the buck parade for us, at least where I'm at. Like, I don't know why, but Missouri, it's horrible that time of the year. Really, it's tough. But in Kansas, like we set 2 years in a row now, we've hunted that time frame and had like 10 or 12 bucks walk underneath us just roaming because like nothing's in yet, but they have to walk the funnels. And where I'm at, there aren't many funnels, right? It's wide open. So like, I mean, you're literally like 10 trees going down a little low spot, and they just freaking strolled. So
Well,
that's what I learned there.
I don't think we seen like a huge number of bucks, probably comparatively to like some of the more Midwest states, but where we hunt in Oklahoma, you're lucky if you see a buck for a week long vacation there, just because of where it's at and like the deer density down there. And it's just, you don't see very many of them. And then you go to Kansas, and even if you see 5 deer, you're like, that was a great hunt. That was
This is perfect. Yeah. I get it. Heck yeah.
That week during the rut, it was crazy because Jake and I were just driving. We got pissed off at public land, and we just got in the truck one evening and drove around. And we were on the phone, and I drove into past a private land Milo field. And I was like, oh, there's a 130-inch deer right there. And I looked to the left, and there's like a mid 160s standing next to him. I mean, literally like a refrigerator standing out there.
Gosh.
And then 2 minutes later on the phone, Jake's like, oh, I'm looking at a 150s. It might be 160s. Like, we were looking at 10 or 15 different bucks through the binos right before dark. It was awesome. Just people and limited public land. I mean, it's part of it, but it's great deer.
Dude, you couldn't pay me the public land hunt. I would go insane. I hats off to you. my OCD I would just be a nervous wreck. I'd be like, who's walking through there? Somebody's walking through there. I guarantee you. I'd lose it.
Well,
I couldn't do it.
It definitely helps your vocabulary a little bit on words you probably shouldn't say, but it's good practice.
Yeah, that's cool though. It's a cool spin.
Yeah.
It's a neat challenge.
A guy like you you shot quite a few big deer and in multiple states. What is it about a deer that like gets you going these days? Is it age? Is it just uniqueness? Is it character? Because you got a lot of different configs and formats and points and all this stuff. What gets you going today?
Honestly, I'm not a score guy at all. And I'll be honest, like that year I killed that little F buck, I had a 194-inch deer that was also patterned out on the farm, and they both daylighted the same day. And the other buck had daylighted 2 days prior too. He had done 3 days in a row. And, but I had no history with that deer. I have no idea where he came from. He just showed up that last year. I had him through the summer. I had him all through his growth, but I have no idea where he came from. Nothing like that. Little left, I passed him 3 times on video as a 3-year-old, picked up his sheds. 4-year-old, passed him twice. My buddy, I told my buddy he could kill him because he passed. He's from East Tennessee. Biggest deer he ever passed as a 3-year-old. So he came back. First morning, he was in the stand with me. I was like, I've seen him 3 times in here. He's here. It's November. Deer comes at 40 yards. He stops him, shoots, and literally split like a sapling this big right in front of his kill zone. Like
I've seen this video, I think.
The video is tragic. I've posted it. It's tragic. But he did that. Buck runs off. Stick around. I was like, oh, that was your chance. Like, sorry, but I'm going to grow him to 5. I want to see what he does. I picked up his shed that year. And then his 5 year, I had him all through growth again. So yeah, like for me, it's about the history of that deer. Like it's the story of that deer. I think I try to do things that a lot of guys don't do I try to really grow one. You know what I mean? Like honestly grow one, like have him and know what he's doing. And you know, I was talking to a guy the other day, we were talking about trail camera. He's like, yeah, this is your easy time of the year. And I'm like, dude, I'm just as stressed right now as I am in hunting season. Like I'm still hunting this deer every time. Like I still want him in front of my camera. I still want to know where he is. I'm still trying to figure him out. Cause man, if I can learn him through June, July, August, you know, then September, October, that becomes easy. Now, November, why I hate November is cause he's not him. He's not himself, right? He's just crazy doing stupid stuff. So it all goes down to luck then. But
so have you had any experience with, let's say like bucks that weren't on you for maybe their summertime range?
Yeah, like you're talking about like bucks that don't summer on me,
Yeah.
but then come in the rut. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even just
like
post
pre-rut.
before the. Oh, go ahead, Jake.
So if I'm just being blunt, I'm talking about the same deer. Like I have no summertime pictures of him. Velvet, he's just nowhere to be found, which I know where he summers. I'm pretty sure. Obviously, it's a different piece of private, but I'm almost confident he summers there. And then around mid-October, he comes onto my property and he, for the most part, stays like around there. But it's kind of hard to pattern him, if that makes sense, on, like get his mentality and all that stuff if
But
it's during the hunt season. And then muzzleloader season and then youth rifle is just about right there. That's honestly probably what pushes him to, or started to push him to my property, is all that commotion going on. But then he's more skittish already. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So there's a time frame coming up, and I've talked about this a little bit on my page too, but I call it the field trip phase. And it's honestly just something I discovered about, had to be like 8-10 years ago now, where we were picking up bucks the last week of July, first week of August that we'd never seen before. And we'd pick them up only 1 or 2 times and then never see them again until the rut. I did some research, talked to some biologists. They say that time frame, the right amount of daylight hours happen, that those bucks get their first shot of testosterone, like their first big dose of it, that starts the hardening of the antlers. So on the inside of the velvet starts the hardening of the antlers. That pushes them out into the rut range. So you'll have an influx of bucks the last week of July, first week of August that you'll never see again. Like I literally have bucks I have 3 pictures of in July, never see them again until October when they show up on a scrape, and then they rut on my farm. So that's another little thing to look for. I was going to mention, because if you run camera, you have cameras out now, I'm assuming
it'll be like this weekend or next. I'm waiting on the freaking batteries to come in, but yeah.
Damn Amazon.
Well, damn Walmart. They didn't have enough lithiums.
I gotcha. I would tell you, like I always tell guys, if you don't have your cameras out all summer, put them out. Like usually, I've seen it as early as like July 26th. Here in Missouri at least, but we even have it in Kansas too. I mean, the same thing happens where you get this little week and a half of like the field trip phase where they cruise out, hit their little rut range, and then they're gone again. And those deer a lot of times will come back and rut. And on the flip side of it, if I'm following a buck like this big deer I'm following in Missouri, if he disappears on me those 2 weeks, I'm going to worry, because 9 times out of 10, when he goes hard horn, he's probably going to be gone. So it can give you a little bit of a insight into there. Now, granted, he may not rut on your farm. He may rut, a half mile down the road. But if he's coming through your farm to do it, that's when you'll see him. So you may get there's some inconsistencies, obviously, in that. That movement. But be very cognizant of it, I guess I should say, because it happens across like all the age groups. Like, I mean, I'm talking, I get new 2-year-olds, I get new 3-year-olds, I get new 4-year-olds. It's just across the board. And I lose deer that I had regularly. But that's kind of the starting point of my bucks that I hunt, that like you're talking about, that just come in the rut. And then I'm just gonna, like, if for your instance, if he shows up in October, especially if early October, like before the 15th or 20th, he's still very conducive to cold fronts because he hadn't got his winter fur yet, or his winter hide. So a cold front, like a 10-degree cold front, can actually affect him worse October 6th than it can October 16th. Right. So it's going to push him up and he can feel more, right? Because he's got that little moleskin summer coat on. So we really focus on cold fronts before the 20th safely of October. Now, after the 20th of October, a 10-degree cold front really won't move him that much. Won't push him in the daylight that much. But if you can get him before then, hang a north wind set. A lot of guys hang their early season sets with south winds because they say that's the predominant wind. Well, it is, but you don't need to be hunting it if it's a south wind. So hang it for like a north or a west for that cold front, and then get on that scrape line in a cold front. And that's probably what he'll daylight on it.
Yeah. Jake and I were talking about this the other day, of this, like, summer is kind of this high and low, this somewhat of an anxiety filled time, because I feel like one of the private properties I hunt, you get good inventory of 10 or 15 bucks in the summer. And it's kind of this funnel as they narrow down and they start to break out from those bachelor groups. It's like, okay, what are the 2 or 3 that this small property can sustain, and which one of those are they gonna be? So it's kind of like rolling this domino effect of like, I hope the right ones are gonna be the ones that decide to close.
Yeah, it's a complete, just keep an eye on that. Like, I love to know, because you guys are in Oklahoma, right? Yeah, I'd love to know, like, if you have some bucks that you're keeping pretty good inventory of or show up quite a bit, let me know, like, that time frame. Because I always want to know, like, other places too. You know what I mean? It's I wonder if it's nationally or what. But you'll find there's a lot of consistencies with that kind of stuff with daylight hours in a deer. He'll do the same thing year to date within 1 day of each other. And the only thing that is that consistent in their world is the sun, right? So how many daylight hours they have. But I've literally had new bucks show up on a farm, like in the rut. When you talk about like your early does coming in to estrus, I think, and this is just a hypothesis, I'm going to steal your word. It makes me feel smart, but I think
makes you feel photosynthesis.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's where you can set things on fire with your thoughts, right?
Yep.
Yes, it is now.
No, but your does, like your old does, always breed first, right? So those old does that come in to estrus at the end of October, beginning of November, those older bucks are so efficient at knowing how to breed and where to be in the right spot that I've had deer that literally have been, the first pictures I've got on a farm is like November 1st. And the next year, the first picture I'll have them is Halloween or November 2nd. Like I've had like 2 or 3 years of the same thing where that deer has not been on a single camera on the farm. And then within a day of each other, every year he shows up. And the only thing I could think in my brain of why he would show up every year is because that doe comes in estrus that time of the year every year, and he just knows it. He's bred her before, he's done it. She's the first one. There's no other does around, and he's very consistent with doing that. There's a little thing, like there's a ton of it. Like I told you, I'm super OCD when it comes to
Yeah, the excursions are really interesting. Jake had a buck, like, I don't know, it's been probably 4 or 5 years ago that would come.
2016.
Yeah, he would come mid-December, like 3 years in a row within like 24 hours, and you get 1 day of picture of him, and then never again.
Yep.
And
he's probably going through,
every single year, like 2
for
a day.
3 years, yeah.
Dude, there's a lot of consistencies with that stuff.
It's crazy to me that an animal who does not have a phone or a pocket watch can know, all right, it's time to go do that.
Yeah.
I'm feeling it.
Yeah. The only thing is daylight hours. That's it. I mean, that's the only thing that's consistent every year.
Do you take any consideration of the moon when you hunt?
No.
Good man.
No, listen. I would.
You reap turkeys.
I'm
why are you even on here, man?
I'm a farce. No. I always say this. I would rather hunt the right weather with bad moon than the right moon with bad weather. And when I say that, I mean like heat, right? So I would rather hunt a cold front with a bad moon than hunt a hot swag of 90-degree weather with a good moon. I'm not saying it isn't a factor, right? But I am saying it's not the end all be all, where cold fronts 9 times out of 10 are going to get a deer on his feet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
way more than the right moon.
It's not something I've really even considered. I had Adam Hayes on the podcast the other day, and
I loves the moon.
Yeah, he does. I'm a seeing is believing type of guy. We also had John Eberhard on the podcast, who has like a complete scent control regimen, and like he does not hunt any wind.
Guys are hating me right now.
I'm like, man, I'll try it. I'll try any of this stuff one time. And
absolutely.
I just have to see for myself. But some people live and die by certain things, but there's so many different factors that can influence movement. It's like, I don't think it's fair to say this one or this one or this one.
No. No, I mean, I know Adam's got his moon guide and stuff, and I'm not taking anything away from the guys. Still way more bigger than I have. But for me, I feel more confident on a good cold front in the stand than I do a good moon. Mm-hmm. Now, if I have both, that's perfect. I'll take that all day long. But I'm not going to wait for both. I'm just going to wait for the cold front. You know what I mean?
if you looked at every single piece of information that's out there in deer hunting worlds, you would never go hunting. You'd be like, well, this isn't right today.
Yeah.
Well, this isn't
Nope,
right
it's all
today.
wrong. It's all wrong.
It's
It's all
November
wrong.
8th, but I can't go because
Right.
the barometric pressure. And it's like, come on. No.
Well, and my problem with the moon is that a large majority of guys hunt the rut only. I don't give a crap if there's a moon or no moon. Those deer are going to rut, and they're going to do that. And I think Adam's twist, I think this is right. I could be wrong, but I think Adam's twist is that it's the moon kind of pushes the rut. Right? Am I right there? Or am I wrong?
I
Isn't
think
that kind of
right,
what it is? Like,
me.
I don't know, me neither. And I hope I'm not setting in with this, but for me, I go back to the daylight hour thing. I think it's daylight hours. I think daylight hours are what pushes that rut. That's the only way that you could have the rut consistently every year. And if you look at what every other thing Mother Nature does when it comes to young animals being born, it's based off of daylight hours, not temperature, not, it's turkeys are the same way. Everybody always talks about turkeys. Oh, it's too cold. The ground temperature is too cold. They're not nesting yet. Like, no, if you go to a turkey brooding house that Tyson runs, if they mess up their light timer, those turkeys will lay eggs in January. Like, if you mess with the amount of daylight hours that turkey sees, it doesn't know what time of the year it is. It doesn't matter with how cold it is, warm it is, what it is, because if you think about the way Mother Nature works, it's all in a plan to where this animal's old enough to survive when at this time of the year, right? Like whenever January, whatever it is by itself. The only way to keep everything consistent is daylight hours. So it's hard for me to say that I would strongly believe that breeding comes off of daylight hours for whitetail deer, but I could be wrong.
So let's wrap it up this way. What plans you got for the fall? What are you excited about this fall? You got a buck that you are really excited about, or a hunt, or out of state, or what's kind of getting you going this fall?
So super excited about Missouri, man. I've got a bunch of new stuff. I had an old partner that I hunted with for the last 5 years. We shared leases together and things like that. We separated, parted ways, got a bunch of leases on my own now, that I'm pretty excited about, just because for me, I kind of get in a rut, you know what I mean, for doing something for so long on the same piece of property. So it's almost like I got a blank canvas, and I get to do a lot more food plots, a lot less ag on these farms, and a lot more flexibility. So, get to do food plots, get to do that kind of stuff. So I've been pretty busy with that stuff, and super excited to see kind of how those farms look throughout the year, kind of learning some new deer. Kansas is looking great. I'm excited to go out there. Got a pretty good one right now. We'll see if we don't have a couple more that show up. Nebraska is still up in the air because they went to this crazy draw system that I don't understand. So, we'll find out Nebraska end of the month. And I think that's all I'm going to do this year. I think I'm going to be Missouri, Nebraska, Kansas, I think.
Do you got a particular buck that you're like, this is the one that I want to devote my year to, or you got several?
Yeah. No, Girth Brooks, the buck I named Girth Brooks.
So good.
Yeah, Girth's the man. That's the guy I'm gonna try to figure out. But I don't know. He's on a new farm. I know him. I've only known him since May, so we'll see. He may just summer on me. I don't know. But right now I'd say he's in the 70s probably right now, and he's got giant nubs on the end. There's some pictures of him on there. I posted one today. Today's Tuesday, right?
Yep.
Yeah. There's one of him today, this morning, or the other morning, the 7th, from the 7th. He showed up, he was on the 7th, and he showed up this morning and put on probably another, I'd say 10 inches just from the 7th. Like, it was unbelievable. He's just blowing up right now. So, pretty excited about him. But again, I'm not going to get my heart broken yet, because I don't know. He may just leave when he goes hardhorn just as quick. We'll see.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, speaking of getting your heart broken, have you listened to any of the podcasts or of our podcasts?
Yeah.
Before?
Yeah.
Do you know what Close But No Cigar is?
No. Oh,
If
yes. That's where. Yeah. It's where you talked about your encounters, but didn't seal the deal, but got close, right?
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's your Close But No Cigar?
Has to be a big one.
Has to be a big one. Okay. I have a great one, actually. Can it be a mule deer story? Because
Sure.
this is tragic. That's a great one, though.
Good.
Not a lot of people know about this story. This is a well kept secret. But I hunted Nebraska. Western Nebraska had a giant mule deer. We thought maybe top 5 archery for the state. I go to hunt him, find him. He's not on the piece I can hunt. He's on a private piece. I go knock on the door. They're like, yeah, go ahead. We don't want mule deer anyway. And I'm like, okay, cool. Go hunt this deer. I literally pull up side by side, get off, standing there with my cameraman. The deer, we had him in this ditch, like, I don't know, probably 500 yards from us. And my camera guy is like, oh my God, what's this? And looks up, and the deer is running at us for no reason, just running at us. He comes up and I'm like scrambling. All right. Like I got my bow. I'm like trying to get an arrow in it, all that stuff. I'm on the ground, like put it together. I'm like, I look up and I range him or he's going to come out of this little crevice at like 30 yards. So I draw my bow and I raise up and I shoot him and I miss him. I shoot over his back. Camera guy had it. Like he was just free, like literally holding the camera. Didn't even have it on a tripod or anything. I'm like, what is going on? So this deer runs off. Well, I guess he had day bedded. A lot of times in Nebraska, they'll day bed and then they'll get up in the middle of the day when it gets hot and the sun gets on them and they'll move. Well, he was a big deer and he was going to the cornfield, the standing cornfield that we were parked on the edge of. So he had bedded in that crevice and was going there. So I'm like, gosh. So he goes in there. Next day, I go in, find him on the private piece, stalk all the way up to him, 57 yards, draw the bow, shoot him, hit him back in like like no man's land, but high and back. So give him 6 hours, track him for 2.5 miles.
Oh,
straight across. Don't find him. I'm like, great. Leave. A month later, he shows up on trail camera again. Fine. I'm like, all right, we're going to go back. So we go back. I get my bow, shoot my bow, and I had had a nick in my string, and it blew up on me while we're at the lodge. Bow just turns into a chandelier. So I'm like, crap. So I have this crossbow. I always carry a crossbow. I keep a crossbow with me.
Keep
so
that thing on me.
Just to keep that. I stay strapped with a crossbow. So I have it. I'm like, well, I guess I'll do this crossbow thing. So we've got a crossbow. So we find the deer, go in on him. 54 yards. I have him with the crossbow. I shoot. I just didn't play the wind. The wind goes back. I hit him almost identical spot. So the deer goes up over the hill and lays down, beds up. I'm like, cool, we got this. So we swing around, get on him. Well, in my haste of doing it, I cocked the crossbow. My limb delaminates, so it splinters. Splinters doesn't break, but splinters and is cocked. So we put a crossbow bolt in it. I'm like, well, I'm going to shoot it. That's all I got at this point, right? This deer's laying down. So we sneak up on him. Takes like 4 hours because he's facing downwind and you can't get like the upwind side is where the cover is. And he's facing directly downwind. He's in a great spot for him. So I can't do anything. So I have to kind of work him on like a crosswind around this little point. And I get up there and he's like 20 yards. I pull up, I shoot. The arrow, is probably, I don't know, that far low, right? Probably from the delaminated limb. But anyway, so he gets up and he runs up on the hill. So I'm like, all right, so we're just going to give him overnight. So we gave him overnight and then went back in there and there's no deer, no blood. We follow blood for maybe 150 yards. Don't find it. Don't find the deer, nothing. So there's standing corn on this farm. So we're like, hey, when you guys harvest the corn, watch out for this deer because he's laying in here or whatever. Never find the deer, never, like, nothing, no pictures, nothing. We're coming to find out the neighbor found the deer dead a mile away, and it was would have been number 3, archery typical mule deer.
You're kidding.
Swear to God, shot him twice, never found him.
Did you get him back?
End up scoring?
It's like 190 something. I think 190.
God.
It was huge.
Well, no, at that point,
I offered him. So I was going to have him. I was like, dude, I'll make you a replica, and I'll give you $500. And he was like, no, I don't like underestimates.
Oh my gosh, what a tool!
yeah. So, yeah. That happened.
That's when you practiced your vocabulary.
That's when I focused my vocabulary. Yeah, that's the worst. Probably worst hunting story of my life.
No,
I probably would have went John Wick on him at that point.
Dude,
I'm gonna get.
I was so crushed. I was like, God, that was just
a special person to like know this is someone else's deer that he harvested, but just that's a special person right there.
Yeah. But, whatever. I can't. I mean, I had my chance. I had 2 chances. 3 chances, really. But, yeah, it was a crazy story of just the worst luck ever. Honestly. I mean, it's just the absolute worst luck ever. But that's how it works, right? Like, luck can be in your favor or it can shut you down.
That you need to write a book, the series of unfortunate events on that one. That's
right. Yeah, my buddy Trey out there was with me the whole time. Like he was like, "This is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life." I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know what else I can do." Like I was at like wit's end with it, just crushed. But it happens. It's part of what we do.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we really appreciate you doing this. Thank you so much. Where, if people want to connect with you, keep up with your season, keep up with Girth Brooks, where's the best place for them to do all that?
At the Blake Garrett on Instagram, probably, or at the Blake Garrett 8 on TikTok. I haven't done much on TikTok. I need to step up my game like you guys are. You guys are like some content producing dudes.
Not
like daily. TikTok. Yeah. Not on TikTok?
Not here lately on TikTok. We've been slacking on that, but
I have too. TikTok really knocked down organic growth, which is annoying. That is annoying. But
Facebook,
anyway,
though.
Yeah,
Facebook is where to go right now.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I mean, we think so because
don't be giving out all the secrets.
You're fine. I won't go to Facebook, man. Facebook. I keep Facebook pretty personal.
But all we did is repurpose what we did on TikTok, and within like the last month, it's already went up like 10,000.
Nice. So you guys on Threads yet or what?
Not yet.
Oh, better get there.
Yeah.
I think I got like 1,000 followers on Threads this week.
There we go.
But anyway, Threads as well. Hey, Blake Garrett at the Blake Garrett. That's probably the most. We do some YouTube stuff on Unfiltered Outdoors. I'll drop some shorts every now and then on there too. But I need to drop some produced stuff, but I just haven't had the time. Yeah, that's it. Instagram's probably the best though, for sure.
Sounds good. Thank you for doing this, man. I really appreciate it.
Man. Thank you guys. I'll do it anytime. Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much for checking out the Hunter's Advantage podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to the podcast. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you in the next episode.